And the Bucs hope that this will be their first victory ever.
We have a great area, growing area, in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Sarasota, Bradenton, Lakeland, and Winnehaven, and even Wachoo. Over 2 million fans, and it's the fastest growing area in the United States.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, live from Tampa Stadium. For the first time ever in a regular season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers entered the stadium with numbers in both the win and loss columns. The Buccaneers came onto the field to a wild standing ovation from the some 60,000-plus fans at Tampa Stadium. They did not introduce any players individually. The PA announcer said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers."
Welcome to San Diego, California, Super Bowl 37. It is Tampa Bay versus the Oakland Raiders. Third down, 18, dropping Gannon, looking Gannon, throws up in the head, intercepted at the 40, Derek Brooks 30, Brooks to the 25, 20, Derek Brooks all the way, there it is, the dagger's in, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks tomorrow. Holy hell.
Everyone always says, why the Bucks, man? Why do you choose the Bucks? And it was a no-brainer.
Brady has all kinds of time, throws toward the end zone. It is a caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay, Mike Evans. 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Brady to throw, throws a deep pass downfield. Got Scotty Miller in the open, makes the catch. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Super Bowl 55 will be underway at Raymond James Stadium. Here's the snap out of the gun. Play action fake pass to Gronkowski. He's going to score a touchdown. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Holy guacamole. Bucs are the Super Bowl champs. They can't stop the clock. And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them. I want to hear cannons. Three-step drop, throws on the end zone. Caught ball. Touchdown, Tampa Bay. Mike Evans reaches up with one hand and grabs it in. Here they go again, tempo mode, dropping to throw, Winston out of the gun, throws to the left. It's intercepted into the 35, outside the numbers to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 25, to the 20, to the 15, 10, Mike Edwards, touchdown Tampa Bay. That's the dagger, my friend.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty, Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
21-15, your final score from Week 5. As the Tampa Bay Buccaneers outlast the Atlanta Falcons for their first home victory of the season. They advance their record to 3-2 and now have a firm grasp on first place in the NFC South for the time being. Welcome back to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast, live today for our post-game reaction show. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, Philly Bucs fan himself from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish. That was an interesting game. 21-15, your final score. I do not think the box score is going to do this offense any type of justice, but we certainly have a lot to talk about, it feels like. I mean, a win is a win is a win, and for the Bucs, this was very, very well needed. But just an interesting game.
Yeah, you couldn't lose three straight. You couldn't lose three straight at home, and then to the Falcons, who I'll give the Falcons credit. I mean, I still, they're lacking in talent, which is why they're not winning these close games, but they fight. The Rams were up on them 28-3 a few weeks ago, and the Falcons came back and they lost, but they made that a game. They probably should have beaten New Orleans week 1 if they hadn't blown that lead, and then they beat Cleveland by 3 last week. So, they fight, and I think their lack of talent. Now, obviously, we'll get into the Bucs, but to me, I think, if you look at the box score, you would say, you'd be kind of curious as to why the Bucs only have 21 points. Because they ran 75 total plays compared to the Falcons' 61, and the Bucs had 420 total yards of offense. which is easily the most that they've had, I believe. No turnovers. They were the more efficient team on third down. Yeah, it was interesting. But I think it was kind of the tale of two halves for really.
I'd say the tale of three quarters.
Three quarters in a different quarter.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even in the third quarter, they looked fine. I think that you can look better, but like they look fine. And like I said, we'll get into it. But it's we'll talk about a few other things as well that led to that win. But a win is a win. Now, do you have to be better? Yeah, like you're facing a Pittsburgh team next week that just got embarrassed today. That's a tough road game. Like they're gonna want to come out and put that horrible loss to Buffalo behind them. So you're probably gonna have to play better next week than you did this week. And but for now, you're 3-2 and you're at the top of the NFC South, a big division win. So you're 2-0 in the division, and that's always gonna help as well.
Yeah, the offensive production for Tampa Bay, a season high, going to be the biggest storyline coming out of today. And it's interesting to talk about because headed into the fourth quarter of this game, the Buccaneers were up 21-0. And even up until that point, they had just dominated on the offensive side of the ball. Couple of 3-and-outs to start the fourth quarter, obviously let Atlanta get back into this game. But it's important to remember that there was a turning point in the first quarter. It was a 4th-and-1 stop in the red zone for Atlanta. The Bucs had tried to go for it and send Fournette up the gut. He did not get there, so they turned the ball over. That play right there, even with the Bucs up 21-0 at some point, if they convert right there, this is easily a game that at one point or another is 24-0, 27, 28 points to nothing. Like I think people are maybe overreacting a little bit to, how this offense kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter, because I feel like, 3 straight 3-and-outs is bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and defend that. 3 straight 3-and-outs for this Bucs offense, who had been rolling all afternoon to start the fourth quarter. That's the last time you want that to happen, because on all 3 of those drives, the Bucs had more than enough chances to go out there and put this game away. Like a field goal probably would have put it out of reach for Atlanta at the end of the day. Another touchdown pretty much assures that you can win the clock battle for the rest of the afternoon and give Atlanta a slim to none shot to come back and try and win that game. But I also felt like it came with the territory. Tom Brady today, 35 for 52, 351 yards, only a single touchdown on the day. I don't think the Bucs went into this game wanting Tom Brady to throw the ball 52 times. And when they tried to get the run game going at the end of the day, it just did not work. Like, I think the timing was bad, but it's hard for me to sit here and overreact about it when this offense very well could have had another touchdown in the first quarter despite the 4th-and-1 stop.
Yeah, they could have. And honestly, thought Kate Otten had the first down. Looked
I thought he did too.
That it was a first down, so that shouldn't even have had to come to that. But this team's inability to get 4th-and-1s is maddening. Like that is inexcusable, and they're gonna have to, for some reason. I don't know whether it's because you have Luke Gedeke, a rookie guard, and then Shaq Mason, a guard who hasn't been here. This is only his 5th game in a Bucs uniform. And obviously Robert Hainsey, an experienced center. I don't know why they refuse to do a quarterback sneak with Brady anymore. Maybe it's his finger. I don't know.
Listen,
the entire season they haven't done it once.
We don't like to be skeptical here on the show, but even the Fox broadcast took an extended period of time to look at how Brady was laboring his shoulder, checking on his hand after getting hit by Grady Jarrett earlier in the game. With that being said, is it too far out of reach to think that, like, yeah, the Bucs just want to be conservative and not send Brady into the middle of a pile at 45 years old with a potential hurt throwing shoulder?
I mean, maybe, but like the shoulder was last week, and I remember there was a few other, the 4th-and-1 in New Orleans could have sneaked it, didn't. Like, his shoulder wasn't hurt then. Like, so I just think it's maddening that the 4th-and-1, like it wasn't even a 1. Like, you're an NFL team. Man up and get the half yard. Like, come on. But the offense I thought was really good for 75% of this game. And the issue in the fourth quarter, and a lot of people in the chat are saying, oh, too conservative. So they had to drive 3-and-out, 1:42 off the clock. Okay, this was after after the Fournette touchdown, Atlanta punted, the Bucs punted. Atlanta scores a touchdown. The next drive, 3 plays, 42 seconds. Okay, Atlanta punts. The next drive, 3 plays, 36 seconds. Like, that's not good enough. Here's the thing. Too conservative. The Bucs threw the ball on first down incomplete. Stops the clock. They completed it on second down. Okay, keeps the clock moving. They threw it incomplete on third down. Stops the clock. If you're protecting a lead there, you should actually be conservative. They were being too aggressive there. Throwing the ball, keeping the clock stopped, giving Atlanta basically extra timeouts. That's why Atlanta was able to, you'd at least run the ball 3 straight times. You're at least running a minute off. Like, you're at least running at least a minute off.
Yeah, 40-second play clock. Even if you let that wind all the way down, that's a minimum of, 160 seconds? Yeah. I mean, 2.5 minutes?
It was 3 straight passes, and then only one was complete. Yeah, okay, 42 seconds. Then Fournette ran on first down. Okay. Second down, incomplete. Third down, incomplete. 36 seconds. Run the ball again. Like, you should have taken at least, both those drives should have taken at least a minute and a half off. If you punt, you punt, but you got to keep that clock moving. That was my biggest complaint. I actually didn't think they were conservative. I thought they were too aggressive there. And that's somebody who's criticized the offensive philosophy. I think they relied on the pass a little bit too much, and just, it's like they never knew how to protect a lead before. And it was frustrating.
Yeah, well, let's not forget, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did win the game today, so let's take some time to highlight some of the offensive playmakers. I had made a couple of hot takes about the offense this week, and while they weren't as productive as I thought they would be, I had them hanging over 30 points. They didn't do just quite that, but spreading the ball around, I mean, I don't think it gets any better than what we saw out there today. Your leading receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 10 receptions and 83 yards, plus a touchdown. He also had a touchdown on the ground. That is playoff Leonard Fournette. How about that? Never thought I'd see that on a stat line.
Yeah. I think it was the most catches he's had in a Bucs uniform as well, in a game. So, yeah, good for him. I thought both running backs looked pretty good today. Running the ball not so much, but yeah, they're not a good running team, and I think they're starting to figure that out. But I mean, if Fournette can give you that on the ground a little bit and through the air, you'll take that. But yeah, I thought, like I said, just you got to be able to control. You got to run the ball better for situations like I just brought up. That's when running the ball better. That's why they were able to control that game in Dallas week 1. Because they were able to run the ball effectively in that burned clock. So they need to get back to whatever worked in that Dallas game, because what they've been doing on the ground hasn't really been working. And like, I'm a guy who thinks that, yes, the Bucs' strength is throwing the ball. They should throw the ball. This is now the second straight week that Brady's throwing the ball 52 times. That's not going to work like every week. That's just not, especially, when he's a little bit banged up. I mean, he's fine. If it was serious, he wouldn't be out there. But like, he's not 100% healthy, I don't think. So, like, you can't have him throwing the ball 52 times. And it's just, to me, it was some unnecessary things. But, yeah, I mean, very, very productive day from Fournette.
Yeah, Mike Evans, by the way, right behind Leonard Fournette in receiving yards. 4 catches and 81 yards for the wide receiver 1. He was robbed of a touchdown.
Well, I don't know, was he? Because I couldn't see it.
I mean, okay, hold on. Can we actually take a second? So if you guys have been hanging out with us live over on YouTube, I got to fill in on the game day reaction stream for our buddy Mr. Bucs Nation. James Hill was in attendance at the game, so I got to commentate live. And that Fox camera crew should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, even on that 40-yard play, they missed the play. Yeah, they missed it. They totally missed it. Like, when they first showed it, I thought I was watching a replay, because it was like a shot of up on top of Scotty Miller
showing the receivers.
Right. Yeah. And I was like, what am I looking at? And then all of a sudden they jump back over and there's Mike Evans inside the 5-yard line.
And the announcer, I guess the announcer couldn't really, I mean, the announcer's got a job to do. So like, he's got to call the game. He can't say, I don't know what we're looking at. He's got a job to do, So he's like, there's a strike, Mike Evans. And we're like, okay, like, what's going on here? I was like, it got me dizzy.
And then even the challenge, like when the Bucs went back and challenged it, the play stood, or the call stood, so they didn't give the Bucs the touchdown there. It was a 40-yard reception for Mike Evans to put the Bucs very, very deep in enemy territory. But like, even the angles that they were showing at commercial break was just awful. Like, it didn't give me a good perspective on where the ball was towards the pylon, whether he had crossed the plane or what the case was. But there were a couple of bumbles for that Fox production team today. And the fact that they missed probably the biggest Mike Evans play of the year so far. I was highly disappointed.
Yeah, that was crazy. And I mean, well, how about his catch earlier in the game?
Yeah, man. 30-yard gain.
Catch. Yeah, so a pretty big time catch there. So
Chris Godwin was
he played well.
Chris Godwin was also one of the big stars of the first half. 6 catches for 61 yards, and it seemed like all of those catches came in those first 2 quarters, but people were asking about it in the live chat. Didn't see a lot of Chris Godwin in the second half of the game, and I have to think the Bucs were just being conservative, had him on a snap count today, and when you're playing with a 2-possession lead, why does he need to be out there?
Yeah. I think Godwin was only not out there because, notice on the final drive he was. He was out there when they needed it. And also, I knew the game was over when the Falcons kicked the ball back to the Bucs. Like, when the 2-point conversion happened, the Bucs have Tom Brady as their quarterback. Like, I wasn't concerned. Like, I really wasn't. So we'll get to it. We'll get to what people were going to talk about, trust me. But I really wasn't concerned. But yeah, Godwin, I thought, did his job. Really moved the chains, and the Bucs did a lot better job on offense on third downs today. And I think Godwin's production was a big reason why.
Hey, I had a kind of a hot take for this guy during the week, and I didn't expect him to have the stat line that he did, but he certainly made his presence felt on the offense today. That is rookie tight end, number 88, Cade Otton. 6 catches, 43 yards, averaging 7.2 yards per reception. I think he may or may not be becoming one of Brady's new favorite targets.
Played well again, yeah. I think we're seeing Cameron Brate starting to lose snaps here before our very eyes. Don't know if he'll be back next week. Obviously, concussions are a touchy thing. But I mean, yeah, Kyle Rudolph was. There's a
2 targets, no catches.
There, yeah, and a drop. There's a reason that dude's a healthy scratch. It's just he just doesn't have it anymore. So I thought Otton played well. Yeah, and he did what he need to do. It's not going to be like a Gronkowski thing. He's not going to give you the real explosive plays, but if he can move the chains, which is what he did today, I think that'll help.
Oh yeah, Scotty Miller, by the way, had a nice comeback game for the people who were rooting for him. 4 catches, 35 yards. I liked what I saw from Scotty. I thought he's one of those guys where I know he isn't a pivotal playmaker on this offense. It's not like he's a starter we're talking about every single week. But with the NFL being a what have you done for me lately kind of league, Scotty Miller needed a game like today really badly.
Yeah, and he had grimy catches. That one, I believe it was 1st and 20.
Over the middle, had to kind of brace for impact.
Yeah, that's the catches that the Bucs want him to make. He's going to have to make those catches to stay on the team. And today he did. Yeah, absolutely. He definitely did.
Russell Gage had 2 catches against his former team for 20 yards, one of them being the 2-point conversion to put Tampa Bay up 21-0. And then Rachaad White out of the running back position, 3 catches for 28 yards. Wanted to segue really quickly and talk about just the different areas that this offense is improving. But I was excited to see what this position group would bring to the table this week, and it was a lot more things to get excited about. The production from our running backs catching the football, I mean, this is night and day. I feel like ever since Tom Brady got here, we have been talking about having a running back as a safety outlet, as a quick check down, somebody who can just get you 4, 5, 6, 7 yards on a short pass most of the time, sometimes break for a little bit more room. But between Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White, 97 receiving yards last week in a losing effort against Kansas City. This week, between the both of them, 110 yards receiving. It's just getting better.
Yeah, it's a mic malfunction. It's first year they really didn't have that, right? In 2020, that's what we were talking about. All these running backs, Brady needs a James White, type. And now it's becoming a really, really good strength of the offense. And it's helping move the chains. It's helping the passing game. I know the deep shots down the field are fun and, like the cool thing, but, it's just move the sticks. Like, that's what you need to do. And that's what Brady's done for 22 years now. So he knows how to work an offense, and he knows that if the running backs can, your running back needs to be reliable there. And Fournette has continued, after not being very reliable in 2020, he has continued to be reliable all last year and this year. So, and Rachaad White's even coming into his own as a pass catcher. It looks more and more comfortable each week. So it's good progress that White's made, and it helps the offense. It just helps the offense so much more.
This time last year, the Bucs were at home playing Miami, and Tom Brady had thrown over 350 yards and 5 touchdown passes. While we didn't see 5 touchdown passes today, and even looking at the box score, the Buccaneers only putting up 21 points is probably going to have some people scratch their head. But realistically, I think we need to take a minute and appreciate that the offense is figuring it out. Like, someone's going to look at the box score and say, oh, they were playing Atlanta and they only put up 21 points, but I just didn't see it that way. Kind of like, it's funny, it's a 6-point game, but kind of like last week we talked about the 10-point loss to Kansas City feeling like a 20-point loss. This is a 6-point win that feels like a 16-point win. I know it came down to the wire, but listen, they absolutely dominated on the offensive side of the ball for 80% of the game.
Yeah. Falcons defense is, and I talked about this a little bit on the preview show, the Falcons defense has improved. The Falcons defense is not terrible anymore. They allowed 27 to the Saints week 1, 31 to the Rams, 23 to the Seahawks, and 20 to the Browns. To me, like, I think people got a little spoiled over the years with a explosive offense. But, the Falcons defense has been playing better. They're starting to make strides there. And I don't think that can be ignored. But, that doesn't mean the Bucs can't play better. They absolutely can. But, yeah, this offense is making some strides. You're seeing improvement. It's a lot more improvement. Able to move the sticks. Like I said, my biggest thing was the third down offense. Third down offense was much, much better than today than really the entire year. What was it today was their best day. So I thought a lot of that was really good. Hopefully they can keep that up. I thought Brady was decent today. I think he was better last week, but I thought he was decent today.
I honestly thought he did a pretty good job at getting the ball out when he needed to, because I think that offensive line was feeling the pressure today. Tom was feeling the pressure a little bit more than usual, and I think there were more than a few times where quick decision, pump fake, got to get rid of the ball, and I thought he was able to do that quite a few times today.
Yeah, I think so. Luke Gedeke had his hands full with Grady Jarrett. I know a lot of people want to say, oh, bench Gedeke. Look, like, he's a second-round pick. Like, you're going to go through growing pains with a second-round pick.
Look at who he's been matched up against so far this season.
It's not like he's playing scrubs. It's not like he's playing scrubs. The Bucs offensive line in the second and third quarter were dominating. Like, they were dominating. And then, it's just the fourth quarter came in. Atlanta sort of pinned their ears back. As we have a $5 super chat from G Vegas. Thanks to Rhett for filling in for James. Any division and win is great. Let's feed Lenny. So if you guys don't know, if you guys are just here, Rhett did a amazing job filling in for Mr. Bucs Nation James, who was at the game today. Ran a 5K beforehand, which I want to see the footage from that. But
man, we were joking because yesterday James had informed us that he was going to be doing the I think it's the Treasure Chest 5K fun run deal the Bucs have every year. So he signed up, he went and he got his number yesterday. And, naturally to prep for a 5K, he loaded up on 3 different plates of pasta yesterday. He sent us a picture of some fettuccine Alfredo, some classic red sauce spaghetti. And it kind of gave you shades of that Office episode with the Michael Scott fun run.
If you know. If you know, you know. He's eating the fettuccine before the race, and then midway through, oh my God, Alfredo sauce.
You gotta get carved up.
Got a carbo load.
Yeah, there it is. But luckily he was able to finish that. I won't give away his results because they weren't great.
They weren't great.
He claims he got cheated.
He's not a runner. He's not a runner.
What do you mean? He tells you he runs every day.
Yeah, but he's lying. He's a liar. He's not a runner, but he is a liar.
Our buddy Bucs UK, Adam Davey, said they had a few Bucs UK members run the 5K today. Love seeing some Bucs fans out there active. The race started at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And I normally wake up early for work, but there is no way you would have caught me running 3 miles at 7 in the morning. But shout out to all of you who did, and hopefully you got to catch a great game afterwards.
Real quick, before we move on to the defense, and then after the defense, we'll talk about the officiating. Harvinder says, are the issues because Bowles is in charge instead of Arians and the no risk it approach? See, here's the thing, though. I said that the issue today in the fourth quarter was that they were too aggressive. Like, it's just, that's the issue with the offense. It doesn't really have a true identity. They were too aggressive when throwing it, and Atlanta was playing the pass. They were incomplete, stopping the clock. Like, this game could have been wrapped up much quicker. So I think they were actually a little bit too aggressive in the fourth quarter, and I think that's what cost them. You did the job. Was it perfect? No. You were up 21-0 and 21-7, whatever. Just, you have a 2-score lead. Protect the 2-score lead, and I just don't think they did a good enough job there. Even though I thought the offense made some strides, they need to be better. Like, there's no excuse. Especially now that a lot of your weapons, obviously Julio Jones didn't play, but a lot of your weapons are healthy now. You have a fully healthy offensive line, and there is just no excuse to be not productive on offense anymore. There isn't, they had Scotty Miller and Rashad Perryman, only guys to throw to. No, like that's not an excuse anymore. So you need to be better at closing games out. But overall, I thought it was again, just like Brady, I thought it was a decent day for the offense. It would have been a good day, I think, had they been able to close out a little bit sooner.
Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. This is where things get a little interesting.
Hang on. Because I got some. Is Harvinder and Will both say, but Harvinder says whenever Tampa tries to run, they got nowhere. And Will said they had to throw because the run game is inconsistent. That doesn't matter in the fourth quarter when you're trying to protect the 2-score lead. The clock matters. They threw too many incompletions, which stops the clock. If you run 3 straight times, you're gonna at least burn a minute or a minute and 30. Not 30 seconds. Like, you're gonna burn more time if you just run the ball 3 straight times. The clock's gonna be moving. Maybe you force Atlanta to take timeouts earlier than they want to. I'm not talking about being productive and getting big gains on through the run game. But I'm a guy who says that, like, they need to pass it more. But in that fourth quarter, when protecting that lead, they went 3 straight passes on a drive that was 42 seconds. You can't do that when you're trying to protect the lead if you're not completing the passes. If you throw 1 incompletion, okay, be like, all right, we're going to play it safe and run the ball, because you need the clock to be able to run. And then Harvinder also says, so it was play calling from Bowles. No, Bowles isn't the play caller. That's Byron Leftwich. I think that goes on 2 people. Well, not 2 people, but 1 person and in a unit. Byron Leftwich calling the plays. It goes on him, but then also goes on the execution, because you're not executing those passes anyway. Those passes could be completed, but you're not executing them. So that's the issue. It's the execution and the play calling down the stretch, which led it to become as close as it was. I'm not saying that, the run game was terrible, so why do that? It doesn't matter. It's about controlling the clock and knowing the situation, and the Bucs were awful in both areas in the fourth quarter.
Well, really quick, let's gloss over the run game before we talk about the defense here. A nice 69 yards on the ground for the day. That includes -3 yards for Tom Brady on the kneel down at the end of the game. Leonard Fournette, 56 yards and a touchdown on 14 carries. Rachaad White, 14 yards and 5 carries. But let's not forget, a couple of those were crucial 3rd down conversions. And then Chris Godwin got 2 yards on 1 carry as well. So with that being said, Tom Brady threw the ball 52 times, and they still found a way to run the ball 20 times. Now, again, you're going to realize week to week that you're not going to run over every team like you did against the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. But given the circumstances, like, I'm not upset with 56 yards and 100 yards receiving for Leonard Fournette. You know what I'm saying? And this week, it really didn't seem like the run game was that much of a factor until the end of the game, obviously, with the play call choice and the 3 straight passes. But it's like, I think everybody expected them to slow down and maybe try and involve the run a little bit more at the end of the game. And then that one drive with 3 straight passes, well, it kind of throws a wrench into that plan when you allow Atlanta to get back into the game. But honestly, it's neither here nor there. A win is a win, and the Buccaneers victorious 21-15.
We have a $2 super chat from Mr. Bucs Nation.
Oh, yeah.
For the Wendy's Fund. I mean, I think James spent enough money today, but okay. For the Wendy's Fund, also, I'm burnt to hell. Well, yeah. That's what happens when you sit, in a 90-degree day.
I don't know. I know he had an elaborate plan for his game day tickets. He has a season ticket up in the nosebleeds that I think he sold, and then he turned around and he bought some tickets this morning for a little bit of a better price in a better section
Man,
but it's a 1 o'clock game.
He probably can't hear you from under that bus.
Jeez. What? Hey, come on, let's not act like James wasn't the only person to do that with their season ticket this week. Anyways,
well, there was a lot of talk about that, wasn't there? It was like, oh, all the tickets on the secondary market are all available.
Whatever,
yeah, like a hurricane
dude.
didn't just hit the freaking
whatever. If you're referring to Mike Florio and PFT,
yeah, like a hurricane,
hell?
like a hurricane didn't just hit 2 weeks ago. Like,
does Tampa have Tommy fatigue? The game against the 1 o'clock game against the Falcons isn't sold out yet. God, I cannot stand that guy. I don't even want to give him any more attention.
All right. So anyway,
there's not a lot of cloud coverage in Raymond James Stadium, especially during 1 o'clock. You're not going to get any shade whatsoever. So
during 1 is the worst.
Yeah.
During 4, at least for the first part, you might be rough, but eventually it's sort of, like the third quarter or so, it'll be a little bit better. But yeah. But anyways, let's move on to the defense.
Let's do it. Give me your thoughts on this Buccaneers defense today. They were in the hot seat after last week, and I mean, they were pitching a shutout after 3 quarters.
Yeah, and I was encouraged. There's still some things in the run game that need to be corrected. However, it was much better today. And it's tough to gauge Atlanta because, like, I mean, they were down 21-0. They're still running the ball because, like, they don't have the ability to pass the ball.
And that's the thing is that, like, I was telling myself, Atlanta, they had to do something, right? And the run game was clearly working. They put up well over 100 yards rushing against Tampa Bay.
They were too conservative down the stretch. They wasted too much time.
They wasted a lot of clock on that last drive that they had before the onside kick attempt. They wasted way too much time. But again, with as conservative as it felt like they were being late in the game, their run game was working. And when they got in for that last touchdown, I looked down at the stats and, like, yeah, they're at 150 yards rushing, but Marcus Mariota only had 80-something yards passing. So it's like you got to kind of give and take. And I feel like that context is important because at the end of the day, while the Falcons were being conservative, Marcus Mariota is not a passer who's going to get you back into the game. And they were just sticking with what worked.
And that's the unfortunate part, that it worked, like I said, I think last week on the previous show, I said, like, Mariota threw the ball, was like 12 of 19 for 100 yards, no touchdowns and a pick, and they won the game. Like, he wasn't good. And I think I don't know what to describe as the run defense. I think here's the thing, and everybody says, oh, the run defense is bad. Sign Subac. One man isn't going to do anything. You can't sign Ndamukong Suh and then, magically the run defense is going to be. There's 3 factors as to why the run defense is not as good as it was. One of them is Ndamukong Suh. Yeah, he was pretty good against the run. That was his calling card against the run. Another one is losing Jordan Whitehead, which I actually said would be bigger than losing Ndamukong Suh. I thought that was actually the biggest loss for this Bucs defense, losing Whitehead in the offseason. He did so many things down in the box for them. I think that was a very big loss. The other one is just the regression of guys like Vita Vea, and Will Golston maybe starting to show his age a little bit. Like, he's getting up there in age. Like, those 2 guys are known run stuffers, and they haven't been as good this year. So I think that is really one of the 3 biggest factors as to why this run defense isn't what it once was. Like, the run defense now, like, it isn't good. Like, we know it isn't good. The good news for the Bucs is that in the NFL, with the way things are trending now, it's a passing league. Like, teams aren't always going to be like the Falcons. Teams that are down 21-0, they're not running the ball. Like, they're down 21-0 in the fourth quarter, they're not going to be running the ball. They're going to be throwing it. So most of the time, you're going to find a team that's going to be throwing the ball. And I don't see any easy end in sight. Now, my Bucs Nation prediction was spot on. I said the Falcons were going to rush for over 100 yards total, but still lose the game. And that is exactly what happened. So I was finally, about time, I'm right on the money with one of these predictions.
151 yards total rushing for the Atlanta Falcons. That's 7 carries for Marcus Mariota. He goes 61 yards. Is it Tyler Algier?
Yeah.
13 carries, 45 yards for him. Caleb Huntley, 8 carries, 34 yards. And I think it is Avery Williams, 3 carries for 11 yards. That running back committee they had really started to pay off towards the end of the game because, you could tell this run defense was tired, but they ran well.
Yeah, that's without Patterson, too. I'll give the defense a little bit of slack because we talked about the offense having a 42-second drive and a 36-second drive. The defense has to go right back out there. It's hot. The offense is going to have the advantage. I'll give the defense a little bit of a pass there. I thought the defense was good today. Now, Atlanta's offense is bad. I think both can be true. However, this is also a positive sign for the defense to bounce back like it did.
Well, I thought another positive sign from the defense today was the effectiveness of that pass rush. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers now have 20 sacks in 5 games, which means they are averaging 4 sacks a game, which is the highest number I think we have ever seen for this defense in the history of the podcast. And your leading tackler today was Antoine Winfield Jr. from that safety position. 7 tackles and a sack for him as well. What'd you think of the pass rush?
Real quick, I want to hear it. Everybody who was, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka.
Oh,
he's a bust. He's terrible.
Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. He's not going to do it this week. This guy sucks.
And then what did I say? I was saying, I'm not there yet.
Hey,
what do you do?
I was rooting for you because he was a fingertip away from 2 sacks on the day. And you had called 2 sacks on the pregame show. You said, hey, my bold take, 2 sacks for JTS today. Well, he opened up, got the first one of the day. And then after that, he was definitely no stranger to the backfield. He was getting after it.
Yeah, he was good today. I thought him and Logan Hall both were pretty good today. So just want to give myself a little pound back. Just give myself a little pound back. But yeah, I thought the pass rush was again decent. There was a lot of times where I was like, man, Mariota's got a lot of time. Deidre Sennett had a sack against his former team, which is cool. However, that was one of the ones that's a covered sack. Like Mariota held that ball.
Yeah, but he came around that corner screaming. He was fast.
He's a big boy.
He was moving quick, dude.
But I thought the pass rush did what they needed to do. A lot of clutch sacks. 2 sacks, I believe, on 3rd down, which forced the Falcons to not even be able to consider going for it on 4th down late in the game. So those are the sacks that you want. You want sacks on 3rd down. I think that's what the Bucs did. And they got to them twice there on 3rd down. I think that really helped. So, I thought the pass rush was decent. The Atlanta offensive line, again, this is not the same Atlanta team that the Bucs have seen the last 2 years. They are starting to improve, and the offensive line is one of those areas that is starting to improve. So while it's not a great offensive line, they have improved a bit. So, it helps that they have a quarterback now, unlike Matt Ryan, Mariota can get away from some of that pressure, which will help the offensive line. So,
yeah, go ahead. I can count 2 sacks at least that he got away from that the Bucs could have had. Just missed tackles, him shaking a guy behind the line of scrimmage, gets away, scrambles for a couple of yards. But aside from that, I really thought they were all over him.
Yeah, and Froggy75 says, I don't feel it with this defense. Having 20 sacks already on the season is meaningless, especially after a flop against KC last week. So no matter what happens the rest of the season, you're going to judge it on one game? Because right now, that game looks like the anomaly. That game looks like the outlier.
With all due respect to Froggy75, he was also in the Mr. Bucks Nation stream, and I mean, this guy has already sold this team out. My friend, I'm telling you, take a deep breath and relax. We got a lot of football left.
There's a lot of football.
The Bucs are 3-2. Believe it or not, Tom Brady won a couple of Super Bowls with Patriot teams that started out the season at 3-2. So let's just take a second. Let's relax. A win is a win is a win. Bucs are 3-2.
Yeah, there's areas to improve on. We know that. That's obvious. But the defense played well. They played better. That 4th quarter, it was tough. So the Falcons got the ball, their first touchdown. They had the ball. They started past midfield because of the Bucs having a punt and then a decent punt return. They started the ball past midfield. So, what do you want the Bucs defense to do? It's not going to be perfect. The only thing I wish they could have forced a turnover. They had a fumble that Mariota recovered. Wish they could have forced a turnover. I know the Falcons weren't passing it much, so there wasn't many opportunities for picks. But I wish if they could have forced a turnover, that really might have put the nail in the coffin. But I thought that. I thought the defense was encouraging because I know the Atlanta offense isn't good. But the Bucs defense played well. Both can be true. It is okay because this is the Bucs defense should play well against. It would be more concerning if the Bucs defense was gashed by Atlanta.
Right.
Because Atlanta's offense isn't good. It would be more concerning with that. So I liked what I saw from the defense. They have another offense coming up in Pittsburgh that's not very good. Rookie quarterbacks really struggling, and hopefully they can continue their success there, because I have a feeling that game next week is going to be pretty low scoring.
We have a couple of injuries to talk about, but before we do so, I wanted to shine a light on one more pass rusher today.
We have a $5 super chat from Richard. It says, sure, the defense isn't as good as the last few years. At the same time, we're not facing Mahomes every week. We're still in a good situation. I agree.
I like it.
The Bucs gauntlet per se is over for now. They have a little tough stretch here coming up with Baltimore and LA back to back. And then maybe later with Cincinnati and San Francisco.
But between now and then, this is where you stack wins up. You start with the Falcons. If you can go on the road and you can beat the Steelers next week and then beat Carolina after that, you go into a tough stretch 5-2. Mm-hmm. It's like if you would have told anyone that this Bucs team was 5-2 at one point in the season, they'd be A-okay. What I mean? Nobody cares about those first 4 games when the team is 5-2 after 7. So
and obviously they still got to play and win those games. You're not looking past them or anything. The Pittsburgh
no
game
doubt.
particularly is going to be tough. But the defense, like you said, they played Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes back to back. Those are 2 elite quarterbacks. I know Rodgers and their Packers offense has been up and down. But Rodgers is still a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, whether people like him or not. Talent wise, he's still a really, really good quarterback. So that's going to happen. In Kansas City might be one of the best offenses in the NFL. It's going to happen. Was it pathetic last week? Yes. Did we talk about it being pathetic? Yes. We acknowledge that. But we can also acknowledge that they made progress this week.
Vita Vea got a sack today.
He did.
Big man got after the quarterback.
He looked better. I don't know if he looked good, but he looked much better.
There was that one face mask call where it was blatant, but he was still able to wrap up the running back with one arm and make the tackle. That's the stuff that I'm used to seeing, to be honest. He's already taken up a block, has a hand in his face mask. His head is turned completely, and he was still able to reach out one of those giant arms and bring down the running back. But more positive signs from Vita Vea. And anytime he can make a splash play like the sack when he did, it's going to go a long way. And I like seeing that kind of production. But wanted to give him some love because a lot of people, just like JTS this week, had him in the doghouse, and it felt a little undeserved.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was kind of deserved because I still think he's a big reason why the run defense hasn't been the same. It hasn't been good. I'm trying to call it, spade a spade, but he was good today. He was good today. So, I do think that, he was good. Hopefully you can build on that. I think there was the one play where the Falcons ran up the middle and it just kind of stopped. It stopped when I got to him. And I was like, that's what you're used to seeing. That's what you're used to seeing, but you haven't seen that all year. So, and then hopefully this is the first step in it, him really waking up here.
Our buddy Willie Beam and the moderator brings it up. Great point on that Vita Vea sack. He was actually lined up on the edge. Joe Tryon was kicked inside playing the interior, and they basically ran this kind of a stunt with Vita Vea, but he came off of that edge like Deacon Jones and Lawrence Taylor. Big athleticism from the big 350-pounder, some Polynesian power up in there, but just wanted to show him some love. Now let's talk about the injuries. I had mentioned these briefly, but we'll know more as the week goes on, and of course we'll keep you updated, but not ideal for Tampa Bay. They lost 3 players in the secondary in that second half.
In about 5 minutes.
Yeah, Mike Edwards, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and Carlton Davis all left the game today with injury. Have not gotten much more of an update since then, unless you have heard anything otherwise, but we just have to wait and see how this shakes out.
Yeah, this was a little concerned. We don't have any updates right now. Yeah, there is no, but they were down to Jamel Dean being their own, and they were already without Logan Ryan entering the game. So they were down to Jamel Dean being one of their only starters in the secondary. Jamel Dean and Antoine Winfield Jr. So hopefully all them guys are okay. Murphy Bunting, barely played and then comes in and gets injured. Hopefully, like I said, all those guys are okay, or at least some of them can come back next week. So, because the Steelers, while their offense hasn't been good, they have a pretty talented receiving corps.
Yeah, Sean Murphy-Bunting, they had designated it a quad injury. Mike Edwards was a wrist/hand injury, and then I do not remember what the Carlton Davis one was, but he did limp off.
I believe it was a hip.
Right, so something to monitor. obviously going to be really important here down the stretch as we talk about how well this defense has played. Those guys in the secondary have been a big part of it. Mike Edwards and Carlton Davis. Sean Murphy-Bunting still finding a role, but you got to give him his roses whenever you can.
Yeah, I agree. And, I thought the secondary was fine. They weren't tested a whole lot. Like they were not tested by this Falcons team. And, there will be tests coming up though. Like I said, Pittsburgh has a talented receiving core. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. Like those guys are talented. So you're going to need to get healthy. And I don't know the status of Logan Ryan. I don't know if he's coming, back. And, so, I mean, Keith brings up these guys are old and long in the tooth. Well, Carlton Davis is in his 5th year. Mike Edwards is in his 4th year. And Sean Murphy-Bunting is in his 4th year. So that's not right. But, anyways. And also, you get a shout out. Thanks for filling in for James today, Rhett, from Buck Wild.
Thanks, man. One of the moderators over there on his channel holding it down as always. It was a pleasure hanging out with Bucks Nation as always. Love reaching out. And,
With
I mean,
Bucks
it's always
Nation,
fun.
yep.
It's always fun filling in for James when I can.
So Harvinder
this is
going to lead us into our final discussion here. He says, are we going to discuss the officials? Tampa got really lucky with a number of those flags. They got lucky with one of them. The other ones I think were justified. Let's first, we're going to get out in front of this. The roughing the passer call was awful. There is no defending it. There is no saying, well, no, it sucked. Like that roughing the passer call sucked. Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts. It was terrible. However, so was the non-call on defensive pass interference on Scotty Miller the play before. Like, and that would have got the Bucks down to like the 10-yard line and would have ended the game right there.
I don't know. So that's Scotty Miller, the non-call defensive pass interference. They ran that play twice. They targeted Scotty twice on that deep shot right side of the field down there in the end zone. The first time Tom hit him, he kind of underthrew it. So Scotty had to slow down. And it gave the corner enough time to realize the ball was coming and just kind of throw himself into Scotty to make the play.
Yeah,
and once the corner
he turned,
once the corner turned around, it was no longer defensive pass interference, but people were upset about that one. But yeah, I will agree. That second one was even more of a non-call. Scotty was able to come down and make the catch, but he's out of bounds. Doesn't matter. Bucks get bailed out. The very next play with the roughing the passer. Yeah, but that call on Grady Jarrett, he was furious, and I know we're Bucks fans.
He's every right to be.
Yes, he had every right to be as emotional as he was. I know we are Bucks fans, and I know a lot of people in here are Tom Brady fans, but if you have been watching this brand of football for a little while, you know that every now and again, maybe there's a call that could go one way or the other.
Yeah, but Brady hasn't gotten a ton of those calls in Tampa.
Not so far this year. Just in general, he's had a few.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he hasn't. Like, they were even showing on the broadcast. They were showing earlier, they were showing earlier the hits that Brady took, and some of them, like, man, yeah, it could have been not pass interference, roughing the passer. I thought the hit on Vita Vea was, that Vita Vea had on Marcus Mariota. I thought that was an egregious call. The refs. You want to talk about the refs bailing the Bucks out? The refs missed an obvious hold on Antoine Winfield Jr. that allowed Atlanta. That was on Atlanta's touchdown.
A lot of people were talking about that one.
Clear as day a hold. He was holding him in the back, and then he held him in the front, and that was no call. The refs are bad. Right, refs are always going to be bad. They're going to be bad for both sides. The Bucks got bailed out there, sure, but like, you also can't acknowledge that without acknowledging the play beforehand. But this week, that's all people talk about. All they'll talk about is how the Falcons would have, and also the Falcons still were down. It would have meant the Bucks were punting. So the Falcons would have had to drive all the way down the field and score a touchdown. And I don't know. I have no idea. It was brutal. It was definitely brutal.
It was definitely a disappointing way for that game to end. Like, I'm not gonna lie, a Bucks win is a Bucks win, and I'm just as happy as anyone else. It wouldn't have mattered if they got bailed out by the call or not. But whether you're an Atlanta Falcons fan or you're just a fan of football, the bad officiating. The bad officiating that has ruined games over the last 3, 4, 5 seasons in the NFL. It is a common trend. And I'm not saying that you need to get used to it because that's just the way things are. But what I'm saying is that we may just need to get used to it because, unfortunately, that's the way things are.
Yeah, if you're a casual football fan, you have no allegiance to the Falcons or the Bucks. You're sitting there and you're like bummed. You're like, man, like, I wanted to see Atlanta try and drive.
Bucks were in every Bucks were in every situation to win the game right there. Huge sack. Grady Jarrett gives the Falcons a chance to win it.
Yeah, and it didn't happen. So, for the as far as the game, it sucked. There is no ways around it. But it happened. The last time we're gonna talk about it, there's nothing to talk about. It's done. It's over. The game's over. They're not going to go back and say, oh no, actually, the Falcons won. It doesn't matter. So, and then Richard also brings up, if it was reversed, Bucks fans would be fuming too. Yeah, the Falcons fans should be fuming. Like we talked about, they should be. They should be angry. That also doesn't mean Atlanta would have won the game. That also doesn't mean that, it's not like the Bucks were down 1. Atlanta got that sack and then the Bucks kicked the field goal.
Right.
Then that's way different. It's, and then we talked about earlier, the Kate Otten thing, that spot would have given the Bucks a first down. Maybe the Bucks get points there and the game's not as close down the stretch. The refs are bad. The refs in the NFL, in American sports, are bad. They're always going to be bad. It is what it is. There's a human element to it where they're not going to be perfect, and notoriously the refs are bad, and they were pretty bad.
I can't wait for the 30 for 30, 25 years from now, where it's exposing a ring of NFL refs who were betting on the action between the 2017 and the 2024 season. Just some crazy nonsense like that, because it has been every single year. There's a couple of games that are just officiated so egregiously that people have no choice but to talk about it for the next few weeks. But fortunately, it is what it is. Neither here nor there. Bucks win, Falcons lose. Let's wrap up this pod with a take bag. Do you have one this week? Maybe a couple of big takes you have from the Buccaneers' victory in Week 5.
Not really. I had a mixed bag of what I saw from Keanu O'Neal. I had a few nice tackles and stuff, but also
had a missed tackle.
Yeah, had a pretty crucial missed tackle there, and he's been up and down. He's been okay. He was thrown into a spot there, and that's fine. I mean, but their safety depth is really good. So, other than that, not a ton. I thought, the Falcons really didn't get any pressure off the edge on defense, so that was good. The tackles, Donovan Smith and Tristan Wirfs really held up well. Yeah, and like I said, I pretty much said everything. I don't really have much. Suck up obviously big with making extra points. It turned out like it was even bigger than we thought it would be. So it was just a win's a win, and they need to be better because they're not going to win. They're not going to beat the Ravens playing that way. You're not going to beat the Rams playing that way. I don't care if the Rams are struggling a little bit. You're not going to beat the Rams playing that way. It's just not going to happen. So,
speaking of the Rams, we are live on YouTube, so all the 4 o'clock games have already started. And on my TV in the background, I've got the Rams and the Cowboys. And you might as well just play the Benny Hill music over this entire game. It is incredible. The S show I have watched so far. Every time I look up, somebody's turning the ball over.
And Harvinder brings up a good point. That's the final point I have. No turnovers. That was a big thing, especially with a game that ended up being close.
Another week in a row.
Yeah, it was a big. Well, they had the turnover, the fumble.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, my bad.
But yeah,
no turnovers for Brady for another week in a row.
How about Brady? That was the fumble.
Jesus Christ. Well, forget I said anything.
They played a pretty clean game, and they're going to need to continue to do that and just play. The only complaint is that they didn't force turnovers on the defensive side. And obviously we talked about our biggest complaints about how the offense got too aggressive actually in the fourth quarter. And they're going to have to correct those things. We talked about the amazement, how you pronounce that? You bring up the 4th down conversions or non-conversions, I should say. Yeah, we talked about that too. It's get the yard, right? It's inexcusable, but at the end of the day, they're 3-2 now, and they have 2 more winnable games coming up. You got to focus on Pittsburgh. I think it's a really tough game against, teams always play harder after you get embarrassed like that, right? And I think Pittsburgh was embarrassed today. It's Kenny Pickett's first start at home. And where he basically played college, where he played all of his college ball, where he's playing his pro ball now, they're going to want to come out and, play well, and it's not going to be easy. So you have 2 more winnable games coming up before you got another tough stretch, and I think you got to win those games. So, but today was a good start.
Got to build on it. Hopefully the Buccaneers will do that with a tough road test next week in Pittsburgh. The next time we talk to you on this very podcast, we will be joined by former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Sean King. We'll get his take on the Week 5 game, and we'll look ahead at the Buccaneers game coming up against Pittsburgh. Should be a good one. Shout out to everybody hanging out with us over on YouTube. Blizzard, Mike, I'm not going to shout him out. Amazement17717, Keith Johnson, really beaming the moderator, holding it down. Richard T with the super chat. Will Williams, Keith Johnson, anyone else that I may have missed. We truly appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already for more great Tampa Bay Buccaneers content. And shout out once again to everyone checking us out after hanging out in the Mr. Bucks Nation Week 5 reaction stream. Maybe I'll make an appearance in one of those next week or something like that. But James should be back in his usual role for the rest of the season. That's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show and, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 Buccaneers fan page on Instagram. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL and check out his written work at BucsNation.com. I know you were putting yourself over because you nailed your staff pick this week, but what else you got coming on?
Well, it's just the predictions review, so you can read me sort of gloat that I got it right. So, and then I'll take.
Not only did you just listen to it, but now.
Now you get to read it. So I'll take a look at all the other staff. Thank you very much, Austin, for the
showing some love to the mustache.
That's right. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'll be taking a look at the rest of the staff's predictions and seeing how right or wrong they were.
Should be a good one. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We will talk to you guys tomorrow on a brand new episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast with former Bucs quarterback Sean King. Should be a good one. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll talk to you in the next one. Until then, and as always, go Bucs.